Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Pranams at the lotus feet of Shri Sadguru. Pranams to Swamiji, dignitaries, co-panelists, great scholars assembled here, friends, colleagues, and young scholars. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the 9th Annual Peace Conference organized by Sri Vishnumohan Foundation. The main title of the conference remains the previous one, Peace is Born of Justice. We have decided to continue with this topic as there emerged a general feeling that a lot has been left over to address in this rather huge and engaging topic. Let's remember that the topic at hand becomes an issue of prime concern in today's world where fresh war cries are heard almost every day. Despite this, the clan of philosophers who die on analyzing concepts, arguing for and against their favored theories, have failed to rise up to the occasion the situation demands. There was no dearth for philosophical explorations on the relation between knowledge and virtue, as we have heard famously from Socrates, but none of this got reflected in the experience of scholars around. As Hegel has famously said, the owl of Minerva begins its flight only with the onset of dusk. Philosophers always emerge at the end, and they're always late. But this inactivism, which has been a common disposition of philosophers, is no more seen to be a virtue. Theory is for praxis. It's here that religious organizations like Sri Vishnumohan Foundation come to our aid. When Sri Vishnumohan Foundation, just sharing with my co-panelists, stood up and bravely took initiative to organize annual peace conference, bringing practitioners of different religions close to each other, opening avenues for exchanging ideas, convictions, and even heartburns that remain unhealed for centuries, it marked a history. The initiative taken by the foundation to organize a collective thinking on this has been lauded by many. This initiative opened up great possibilities, for we could once again attend to the wounds born of religious or cultural or even ethnic assaults, however old they are, because retaining them as such would only make them more rotten and painful. In the past peace conferences, we have heard woes of Jews here, where is Bose here? Bose was here. We were almost in tears, I think the year before last when he spoke on the woes of Jews in India and in Israel, of the Buddhists in Sri Lanka, and that of the Hindus in some of the Southeast Asian countries. Let these wounds remain open, or let us open it up, and the wounds shared, for that alone would help it to get healed. This kind of repairing for the loss is something a routine educational institution will never be able to do. For those are places where we push the social ills and religious atrocities and such problematic occurrences neatly under the carpet. We sweep it neatly under the carpet and pretend as if everything is fine, clear, and good. I still remember some 15 years before, many academics used to twist their eyebrows and used to even devalue the activities of the foundation as it was led by a religious organization, the Sri Veta, being led by a sannyasi when our Sadguru was alive. Friends, we live in a strange world where anything to do with religion is detested in public spaces and kept away from academic discussions. For religious beliefs are said to be the private concerns of the individual. So we were told ever since the virtues of modernity become prevalent during early 1920s, A.J. Ayer, a whole lot of philosophers have told that religion carry no propositional value. They are private beliefs and should be dealt in private spaces. But there is a paradox. On one we keep religious beliefs away from the formal desk, but it is everywhere. Wars are fought in the name of religion. So this is the global scenario. But when we come to the Indian scenario, things are even worse. Here, anything to do with religion is not only private, but even considered as harmful and dangerous to the society. Those who are academics sitting here would pretty well remember how delicate and vulnerable we feel when religious issues are brought to the formal desk. So I think independent India has picked up the wrong lessons on secularism. Or probably we need to redefine secularism as befitting the Indian context. Remember, we have stripped off all that is valuable from school syllabi as it carried religious symbols. We no more teach Bible or Bhagavad Gita because they carry religious symbols. Fearing that it might offend our constitution with its pronounced secularism. Neither the policy builders nor the executors realize that we are throwing off the baby along with the bathwater. We must realize that we can neither undo the major roles religions habitually played in our individual and social lives, particularly in the Indian context. As Swami Vivekananda said, here the only language that we understand is the religious language. Everything has to be spoken in religious language in order to get across the other. Nor can we strip off the religio-cultural factors that provide a platform for individuals' authentic existence or authentic living. In fact, if you ask me, we are a bit late now in providing an Indian version of secularism. In India, by secularism, I guess, we do not mean suspending religion, but rather permitting the individual to continue with her existing religious beliefs without causing any damage or challenge to the other. As Akhil Bilgrami rightly points out, he is a leftist writer, but nevertheless, his insights are sometimes valuable. That this version of secularism was in practice here in India since time immemorial. We were basically secular, but the Indian version of secularism. The religious other. Look at the Kerala scenario. Since 1st century AD, we have been living a secularist lifestyle. But here, the religious other was never a hell as Sartre would have it, but a useful mirror extended before the self to see his or her own image in a better fashion. So, the religious other was a very useful entity, not the hell as the existentialists would fear. So, today our academic fraternity across the country would concede that Sri Vishnumohan Foundation's pronounced religiosity is its strength, not its weakness. This reunion, which I think is one of the greatest contributions of the foundation, the marriage or the remarriage brought between religion and philosophy, something which can happen only here, because very often I have told the community who is sitting before me that here I can speak out my mind. So this reunion of religion and philosophy has been a fundamental position of the foundation. Theory without praxis. I remember Professor Bhatt who used to reassert this fact. Theory without praxis has never been encouraged in Indian thought. Prayojanam anuddishya na mandobi pravartate. So prayojana vichara is a major constituent in every theorizing exercise. Viewed thus, philosophy fructified in religion. Our Sadguru used to tell us that the plurality in religious positions, which was opposed by many logists during 19th century, she says it should be seen as its virtue, not as its defect, as early analysts accused. Plurality is only with regard to the methods and approaches, not on the goal. Governor Saab has beautifully spoken about all that. I was complaining to Swamiji that he has left nothing for us to speak because he is exhausted. All that has to be said. So whatever we are going to say is just footnote to what he has already said. So it's like, Sri Sadguru says, it's like climbing the hill from the different routes. One cannot challenge the other route. At the top, everyone is together. Further, she says, Sadguru, it is not important, as Swamiji said in the Anugraha Prabhashana, it's not important to who you pray, but what is significant is whether you pray and how you pray. Now let me problematize the topic under considerations, that is, peace is born of justice. First, let's start from the obvious. We know that justice is the means and peace is the end. Governor Sahib has given a different version of it, but I am also coming to the same conclusion. Justice is not what, justice in the Indian context is not what the West speak of. We have different connotation for that. So we know that justice is the means and peace is the end, rather the ultimate end of everything. The role of justice as the means to peace is also evident. Where there is war, be assured that there is some sort of injustice being done, either presently or sometime it would have happened in the past. Just as cleanliness is a state when the dirt is removed, so to peace is a state when injustice has been removed. There is a clear causal relation between justices and peace. So given this causal bonding, we need to focus on the cause, namely justice, and leave it at that, because peace is an automatic outcome of it. Justice today wears a secular attire, and that is what worries us, because we don't understand what this justice after all is, because we cannot put it in our Indian linguistic terms. That is what Governor Sahib was saying, that it is not justice what is significant, it is wisdom. Because he realizes that it is the European notion of justice is alien to the Indian conceptualization. So justice today wears a secular attire and is often confined to the nation state and its functions. A modern state is expected to ensure equal justice to all its citizens, thus ensuring justice has become the exclusive responsibility of judiciary. So justice and ensuring justice is the responsibility of judiciary and other constituents of a government, a responsibility partly shared by its lower organs of the government, but the individual has nothing to do with it. She is kept away from either conceptualizing or executing it. Here we go wrong, as Governor Sahib again indicated. In fact, we need to turn the table around. Let justice be the prime concern of individuals. By shifting the responsibility of realizing justice from government to individuals, by turning the table around, we will open doors for exploring the deeper metaphysical implications of justice. Inviting the individual to be at the center stage, we are going to open metaphysical possibilities for conceptualizing it. In Indian thought structure, justice gets rolled up with obligations, a dharma. When dharma is performed in its best fashion, justice prevails both at the individual and social realms. The dharma, I am giving a version of it. Dharma has two layers, the social and the metaphysical. I would prefer to call it as the apara and the para versions of dharma. The apara, the empirical version, speaks about how social justice can be brought about by the administrators at different levels, at the kingdom, at the village governance, and even in the family governance. This is all the apara versions of dharma. The Dharma Sutras deal extensively on this, and they are texts that are to be revised contextually, since the roles of the members keep changing as time changes. But the para, the metaphysical version, is static and permanent. But here too, there is dynamism, in the sense that it appeals to the individual according to the level in which she is in. If the aspirant is at the lower level, her dharmas are different when compared to a Jivan Mukta. The apara version of dharma lies in fulfilling the responsibilities ordained by the scriptures to all social institutions, starting from family. Varieties of obligations have been specified. I am not getting into the detail of it because we have extensively discussed it in yet another conference that the foundation organized, that is the Karya Akarya seminar, where Lord, in that conference, things were made very, very clear. Tasmad Shastram Pramanam De Karya Akarya Vyavastito, where Lord says that let Shastra be the text of ordinance to determine what is the Karya and the Akarya seminar. So this is to do with the apara version of justice or dharma. But let me just quote Sadhguru. I am not going to detail that. But let me just quote Sadhguru, who calls upon the individual to ponder over before taking up an act. Before taking up every act, he says, you will have to ask these questions to yourself. There are 4 options. Why are you taking a particular action? First, you may say that I like to do it. Here clearly one is succumbing to one's lower emotions, and the decision is led by your emotions. Second, it is the right thing to do. You might say that I want to do it because it's the right thing to do. Here, you are succumbing to a set of norms passively. And of course, this is a better version than the former one, but still you are at a lower level. The third option is that you may say that you do it for the welfare of others because the people around you would like to do that. Definitely you are again ascending to a higher level because you are able to look beyond your limited self. But the fourth option, she says, is the best. And the fourth is that I do it because it's a command issued by God and I offer it to Lord. And this is precisely what Gita Kara, Lord Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita. So this submission to Lord's will, something underscored in the later Vedanta traditions as well as by Gita Kara, has several merits in it. Here, the Kartrutva and the Bhoktrutva are totally removed from the agent despite the fact that she remains as the agent. As a result, as Gita says, despite being the active agent, you remain inactive. The confidence, I presume, will look into how the Apara and the Para versions of justice in the Indian textual tradition and how it brings about peace. Regarding the reinterpretation of Dharma too, like the scientific theories, has its core and auxiliaries. I am reminded of philosopher of science, Lakatos, who died very young, at the age of 40. He speaks about how to keep examining the scientific theories. He says that there are the core theories and the auxiliary theories. And he says that when you value the core theory and you want to preserve it, but nevertheless it is in conflict with other theories, what you should do is, you should change the auxiliary theories. The same thing can be done when you want to reinterpret the Apara versions of duties or obligations, or what you call the Yuga Dharma. Mahabharata beautifully, His Excellency has spoken about how Mahabharata redefines Dharma. And Lord Krishna is a mastermind who, lays his hand and gives us a model. Of course, we can't follow him because he is a mastermind. What he does, we cannot do. But then there is a model as to how to redefine Dharma according to the changing times. In our own times, we have Mahatma Gandhi, who is again a brilliant genius in reinterpreting Dharma. Whenever people point to him about the conflicts of between two dharmas, then he very effectively and creatively lays his hand and then resolves it. And he says that, of course, you need to reinterpret Dharma, otherwise it will become obsolete. But then, everybody is not empowered or entitled to do that. There are two qualifications for one to lay his hands in redefining Dharma. The first thing he says, I'm quoting Mahatma Gandhi, first he says that he should not have any private or personal agendas in mind other than the desire to contextualize the principle in a befitting manner, according to the changing times. Second, in his inner conscience, he says his inner conscience, the Antakarana, should be crystal clear that there is the least possibility of his treatment of the principle being vitiated by any bias. Now let me address the Para version of Dharma, again spoken beautifully by the governor. I just cannot help but remembering what he has said. This is the metaphysical version, as Yajnavalkya has told us in Brihadaranyaka, that individual is always at the center of every philosophical exercise. Swamiji, in his theme note for the conference, has beautifully said that the individual, the fulcrum of the world is the individual, at least according to Indian philosophy. All idealistic streams, be it the Buddhists, the Jainas, or the Vedantic traditions, place individual at the center. Starting from the Upanishadic literature, philosophy as such has been focused on the individualistic perfection, clearly for metaphysical reasons. The metaphysical reasons, as you all know, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. It is the Jiva, the phenomenal self, caught in the vagaries of the apparent realities, will have to be saved, and that is the sole enterprise involved in it. Sadhguru is of the view that the individual is the prime mover. Her thoughts, speech, and actions are to be tuned for her own spiritual uplift. The discussion thus takes a turn towards justice due to the individual self. Now remember, we are talking about justice onto one's own individual self. We have to pay justice to our own self, the jiva, the phenomenal self, caught in the apparent reality. Interestingly, the apara obligations that we discussed a little while ago, the duties to other agencies, be to the nature or to the other sentient beings, are all ultimately obligations to one's own self. There is an interlinking between these two. It may appear as if that we are doing good to the other, but the ultimate goal is one's own spiritual uplift. Let me recapitulate the formula I devised in the last peace conference, wherein I have said that Dharma speaks about a set of duties one will have to perform that fetch. The formula is this. This is a formula given by Lord Krishna, that when you perform duties, the material benefit goes to the other and the spiritual benefit goes to the self. Now, this would work because given the findings of Yajnavalkya, if Yajnavalkya is right, that Atmavare dashtavyo navare patibhup kamaya pati prayo bhavati atmanastu kamaya, everything is being done by one's own self, because the self, the individual doesn't see anything in the world other than the self, and anything that he cognizes is meant for the benefit of the self. Given this self-centeredness of the individual, if this is right, well then the individual will not do anything for the other, come what may, or whichever text may give ordains. But if this doing good for the other is one's own spiritual benefit, that might work. Well, things go different. So this is the shift here. Here the ordained dharma is not sheer norms, injunctions that one will have to do normatively. There is metaphysics attached to it. So when you have the metaphysics added, this gives a fresh flavor to everything. And here things fall in place. The society runs on its own when the individual takes care of his spiritual well-being. So it tells us that by giving away, the Ishavasya Upanishad beautifully says about it. In fact, the Karma Yoga that you see in Bhagavad Gita has its roots in Ishavasya Upanishad. Masters are here. I am scared to speak about that. Tena tyaktena bhunjidhaha. By giving away, you may yearn. So this formula of giving away and earning is the technique of doing good for the other and good for the self. The focus is always the self, no doubt about it. But it also brings the other into the circle. And there is one single exercise which brings the other and the self together. And there is a bond in that. This formula devised in Ishavasya, later elaborated by the Gitakara, elaborates on how to remain inactive even amidst busy performance of functions. In fact, there is no parallel concept available to this para version of justice. Due to lack of other term, I am using the term justice, as I totally agree with His Excellency that justice is not we exactly mean here. So there is no parallel concept available in Western thought for this para version of justice. I would argue that the apara sense, the social justice, is only an extension to this metaphysical or the para sense of justice. While the West still struggles wondering how to eradicate the huge inequalities that you witness in the world at the macrocosm, Indian theories account it on the theory of karma. The entire philosophy is focused on the individual, employing this formula that I have cited a little while ago. So the individual will have to ponder over how she can use the world as a field of activity for her spiritual uplift, which also uplifts the society parallelly. So the ever-enlarging self of an aspirant will also naturally prompt her to be just towards the other, every other, including the nature. As she climbs the stairs, her responsibilities are increasing. At one point, she finds herself as participant in the executive of controlling the whole of the cosmos. And she will not be able to bear the fact that the other, who by now is being realized as her extended self, is subjected to suffering. There are beautiful anecdotes in Ramana Maharshi's life, but I have no time, how he sees every other as his extensions. The conference would deliberate upon this para version of justice, justice to oneself, exploring the text and providing fresh interpretations of it. Interpretations by everything. Everything lies in the interpretation. As Abhinava Gupta says, Urdho Aruhya Eda Ardhadatvam Dhihi Pashyadi Shrantim Avedya. And everything is already been Padam Tada Adhyai Parikalpidana Viveka Sopana Parampara. The justice towards the self and the other in place, peace should be automatically brought about. So peace is the ultimate spiritual goal of the individual during her life. A peaceful mind is unperturbed, like ripples. In the second chapter, Gita Kara speaks about the Sthita Prajna. The Sthita Prajna Lakshana gives every definition about peace. Like rippleless water, deep and composed. Prajnana Ghana, as Vasubandhu, early Buddhist Yogacara thinker says. According to Sri Sadguru, peace has its origins in the careful thought, speech and actions of the individual. In the age of Kali, a coordination between these three, the thought, words and actions, is what is needed. Leading a simple life. By simple life, I don't mean wearing khadi or showing off that you are simple. The simplicity is an inner simplicity. It is at the cognitive and the cognitive levels where you have a synchronization of the three faculties that you have. And as His Excellency said, benevolence is a disposition of a peaceful state of mind. The above mentioned version of peace is its positive version. There is also the negative version where peace is the absence of war. When there is glaring difference and dominance of the strong over the weak, turbulence ought to emerge. Heidegger calls upon the whole clan of philosophers to be the watch guards. He says the job of philosopher is to critically watch the concealed forms of power plays and selective use of translations. See, the language symbols are common, but then I be selective in using this language and you be the watch guard of the selective use of translations from the symbols available. In brief, a peaceful living is one where the individual is empowered to lead an authentic life. We have given a series of topics. I have another 5 minutes or my time is go? So I'm not going to read out the topics that we have. We have around more than 9 topics that speakers can cover, and speakers are also drawn from various areas with an aim to have a wholesome understanding of the concept at hand. We are not purely a theoretical or academic community. Some are pure theoreticians, a group that comprises of academics from different disciplines like philosophy, English literature, Sanskrit literature, and so on. Some are executives like my co-panelists, and others are also cultural critics, and there are also members from the NGOs who take pragmatic approach to the problem at hand. In the last peace conference, we heard beautiful experiences of the NGOs on this. I wish you all a great conference experience, and I'm eager to listen to your feedbacks at the end of the conference, letting us know where we flawed and where we gained, so that we can improve. Swasti Rastu. Thank you.